Welcome to the podcast, Raw Lessons Revealed. I'm your host, Craig T. Ingram, coming to you live from Austin, Texas. On this podcast episode, you are about to listen to raw, real, no-nonsense lessons from a gentleman who is well known for his straight-up candor in the digital healthcare sector of the health tech industry. He desires to see companies he works with genuinely win in the marketplace because he just flat out understands that effective commercialization is just plain difficult. And most companies, unfortunately, do not win due to their high failure rate. He and I worked together for a short time in a company in the digital healthcare space in trying to help them figure out the right focus on the commercialization strategies for maximum customer adoption of the software that was being sold and the Bluetooth technologies that patients needed to use on a daily basis working together. His insights on bringing what he calls alpha organizations to prove the concept and confirm the finished product actually works is a validation that is needed of startup companies with their technologies needing to be accepted in the marketplace. So, with all that said, let's dive in, take notes, and talk to another super successful business professional who we can learn from and help transform our businesses in learning what not to do and also prevent from getting stuck. Well, Michael, thanks you very much for being on the podcast of Raw Lessons Revealed. You know, one of the things that we do here is, since our society really just has less and less attention spans, I keep my podcast at, 20 to 25 minutes at the absolute most, because we get into the details right away, right? Because I want people to be able to listen, take notes from people who literally have become experts in their niche. And so with that being said, I'm going to dive right in and ask you some questions, because I think people need to see the value you bring to companies, specifically in healthcare, but even more specifically than healthcare, digital healthcare, right? Whether it's telemedicine, whether it's software, as a SaaS component. That really, from my experience of knowing you and working with you in the past, is where you really can help companies shine well. And so, from a raw, real perspective, what do you think the most logical reason is that digital healthcare companies have trouble commercializing effectively to their target market in the marketplace?
Wow. It's a complicated question.
Yeah, it is.
There are so many factors in getting a company from zero to commercialization, right? You have to look at, your funding, you have to look at your product. If you're coming into the healthcare arena, which is the arena I'm familiar with, the question is, number one, do you have a product that is significantly different than what's offered already? That has to be number one. It's either that, or you have a way to bring that same product to the market of equal quality at a significantly reduced price. It's one of the two things that you're able to do. And so that's first and foremost. And then, companies get into it. And I think especially startups, you always have the idea guy, right? The idea guy, God bless them. That's not me. Thank God we have those people in this world
That's right.
They're always looking to solve problems. They're always looking to figure out what that new issue is and how they can attack it. And they bring this idea to the table. But usually those folks need somebody with them that is a business person. And what I mean by that, someone that understands that you have to research and make sure that that product is commercially viable. Can we build this product, market this product, sell this product, and then support this product and have a positive revenue stream? And then understanding what all the stages are along the way. Every idea person that I've ever met thinks they just made the next Rubik's Cube, right? That it's just going to take off and fly off the shelf and they're going to sell a gazillion of these in 20 minutes. And, a trained monkey could sell this, right?
It's the falling in love with my product or service, right?
Of course, but you have to believe, right? That's one thing I always tell people is you have to believe. You have to have passion. You're never going to get anywhere without passion, without drive, and without people coming into your company that share that passion and drive. So clearly you have to have that. But I think the shortfall is always that, people are always like, oh, the number one thing that kills startups is being underfunded. And I think the reason they're underfunded is because they don't understand the process to get from zero to commercialization. They don't understand that the sales curve goes like this for a very long time before it comes up. And understanding what's involved in that very long process to get the curve to go up is just critical. And making sure you're doing things in the correct order, making sure, with that initial money and funding that you get, do we have a viable product? Number one, build the product with that first bit of money, get it there. Number two, and probably before you even start building, do we have 2 alpha partners that will help us build it? Right? As good as your idea is, nothing beats real world ever. So you have to have real world partners that are willing to take this on with you, give you feedback, work through it with you, work through your ideas, believe in what you're doing, and help you build this out. Because inevitably, before you can actually start selling it, you then need data. Nothing in healthcare in this day and age is sold without proof. And that proof is generally data, right? You can go out there and you can sell the vision. Well, when you're selling vision, that's when you're trying to sell investors early. By the time you get to Series B, you have to have data and vision.
Right.
And a plan. Because the B guys out there, and rightfully so, are like, okay, prove to me that you can actually do these things that you say you can do before I give you my money.
Right.
And so
that would be whether it's angel investors or institutional investors, correct?
Absolutely. Regardless of who it is. I mean, I don't know about you, but before I spend money nowadays, I research, whether it's a pair of shoes or whether it's a new tennis racket or anything, or a car, whatever it is.
Right.
I'm going to do my homework before I buy it so that I get the best that I can afford. Right.
Right.
So, you get in these stages and you take that first couple $1 million and you build the product in that stage, you get your alpha clients, you get data, and then you go out and you figure out the second stage, which is, okay, now we're going to go buy a reference or 2 in each of the selling regions of the United States. So again, you're still not at positive revenue. And that's, I think, the part where people fail miserably. They think, no, we already did that. We got the data from these 2 clients. That should be enough. It's not enough.
So it's inadequate market research is what you're saying.
The N is too small, right? The numerator is too small. It's not good enough. And those people are generally invested in your product. So the data in a buyer's mind is still a little tainted, and they're still going to be a little too rosy as a reference because they're invested. And so then you have the second phase of it, which is, okay, now we're going to go get ourselves 1 or 2 references in each of the major selling regions of the United States, which I always tell startups there are 4. There's Northeast, Southeast, Central, and West. And I tell them, I says, look, go find 2 organizations in each of those regions, partner with them, give them a significant discount, give it to them year 1 for free, and just say, we'll start charging you in year 2 based on proven results that you'll want to keep it. We feel that strongly. And go that route. Right. So once you get there, then you can start selling it. Well, people are like, well, how long is that going to take? And I'm like, well, how long is it going to take you to build the product? It used to take much longer. Now with ChatGPT and the programming tools that are out there now, they can build things much faster without a doubt, but it still takes a good amount of time to get real data. And then it takes another good amount of time to get those beta clients and real data from them to build significant case studies and build significant reference accounts that really are going to help you sell. The old days of some slick sales guy walking in and kissing babies and making friends and, schmoozing it up and getting a deal done. Healthcare is beyond that now. You just aren't going to do that. They've all got a rigid process in place, generally speaking, to where they're going to look at your competitors. And
sometimes too rigid.
It's sometimes too rigid. Agreed. Sometimes they get analysis paralysis, without a doubt.
Yeah, they're preventing themselves from being competitive in their market.
Well, the crazy thing is, what'll happen all too often in healthcare is they're on a calendar budget. And so, let's hypothetically say that, your opportunity falls off the budget for that calendar year, just doesn't get funded. It's disappointing for everybody. And they say, okay, we're gonna push this into the next calendar. Well, the next calendar comes around, the whole market shifted potentially.
Right.
You may not even be a priority anymore, your product, number one, or number two, maybe something's changed the whole market.
Right.
I mean, we laugh about this, but everybody in the market right now has AI on their marketing material. I think about 2% of clients actually have true AI in their product.
It's so true.
It's true. And that's the buzzword. You want people to give you a look, right? And I understand that. You have to get in front of people to do anything. And so that's a challenge for the marketing folks. And I understand that. And if you don't have AI in your product right now, you're not likely to get a look. So, there it is, right?
But there's obviously ways to do it where you're not misleading or lying, or, you know what I mean? And that's where I find is happening is that people saying stuff. And then when you really start looking under the hood, you're like, you're not been fully truthful here, folks. You know what I mean? Like it just, it totally happens.
Yeah.
I really liked what you said about product fit. So many times companies, and I don't really think they do this on purpose, but there's so much anxiety. There's so much pressure. There's so much angst that we've got to get it out. We've got to get the product out. We got to get the product out. And right, there's just such a push that they're so focused on the end result that they really don't take the time to build the foundation in order to have the result they need. And so one thing I like about you is that you have an ability to analyze the foundation and look and go, okay, I know we want to get to letter M, but we're still in G, right? And so, and we can't just skip to M. We've got to use the rest of the alphabet until we get to M, right?
Yeah.
So it's like holding back horses from wanting to sprint. And so how do you think that plays into, here, sales rep, we're just going to tell you about our widget and here's a few competitors and go out and start selling, right? Which I honestly think happens way more often than what people are willing to admit, because it does show a weakness, even though a weakness isn't bad. Everybody has them, but there's this hidden, I can't let anybody know my weakness or I might get fired. It's like, no, any logical leader is not going to fire you. Right. Like,
I think it's a factor of what's going on in the market as a whole. And what I mean by that is you think about how you go get money, right? You go get money by throwing up these unbelievable potential numbers and all this stuff to the guys that are going to invest in you and say, look, the market is 28 billion over the next, 6 years. And all we got to do is get a small percentage of that. And we're going to be great. And And the reason we're going to be able to get that is because of this, this, and this. And this is what we're going to do differently. Right. And so you project this fantasy land,
forecast.
Thank you. And
I'm tracking with you, dude. I can't agree with you more on here. I mean,
in their mind, in the investor's mind, they're thinking it's 12 months away. In reality, it's 3 years away, right? Because they don't understand all those steps I just talked about, right? So then inevitably what happens? In a year, the investor's going, why aren't we selling? What's the problem? What's going on? You guys got to do better. There better be some stuff into this, or we're going to start doing this, and we're going to start doing that. We're going to get rid of this guy or that guy. And now all of a sudden you have board pressure pushing down. The CEO is a little panicked because they didn't set the expectation correctly upfront timeline wise as to when they would likely be profitable. When they would likely be able to start scaling. I mean, I can't get over the number of startups that I get to and they're a year in and they're like, let's start talking about scalability. And I just bust out laughing. I'm like, you're 2 years from needing to talk about scalability, right?
Even to have the conversation.
Well, you're going to do things with those early clients that you're not going to do at scale, right? You're going to hold all those early clients like baby birds because no one sells more than a happy client, right?
Correct.
I don't care how good your salespeople are. No one sells more than happy clients. And so, that knowing that we're going to hold all those early guys that got in and we're going to hold them like baby birds and we're going to be super proactive in taking care of them and go that route. Now, the longer you can maintain that, the faster your company will grow. I mean, one of the things, you've heard me tell this and it's something I just believe in to my core is that there are four legs to the stool. When you go to build a company, you have sales and marketing, you have implementations, you have uh, customer support / account management. I should say account management, customer support. And then lastly, development. And the hard thing is if any one of those legs is weak, the first thing to suffer is sales. And the first people you blame is sales.
Yep.
Right. Even though what's pushing back is those other legs are short. Something's short there. And so really good CEOs sit down and talk with everyone, say, where are we short? Where are we short that's hurting sales? Well, we don't have any proof yet. Okay, we got to work with implementations. We got to work with account management, and we got to get the proof, right? We got to do these things. And so at all times, if as a CEO or an executive of a startup, if you're thinking about those four legs and you're reevaluating those four legs every 3 months, you're going to be successful in my mind. You're going to figure out how to get where you want to go by making sure you have all four legs on solid ground. Sales will always do well when they're taught what the product can do. They go out and sell that with passion. They don't oversell. Implementations can deliver what they've sold.
Right.
And this is huge in today's market is proactive account management. You're trying to build case studies. You're trying to build customer references. Why wouldn't you have a contract for success that says you're going to meet with us quarterly to review where we are, what we're doing? Now, obviously in an alpha and a beta client, you're meeting way more than that.
Of course.
But even at scale, why wouldn't you have a quarterly, to follow up and say, hey, here's where we started. Here's where we are now. How great is it? I was privileged to be in a really good company that did that. And it was amazing when you called for a reference. The first thing I would say is, do you have your last quarterly handy? Because the quarterly would show them where they started and where they are now. I mean, and so they had the numbers right in front of them. They could talk to a reference intelligently just by pulling out that quarterly.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have it, I'd email it to them.
Sure.
Say, let me get that over to you. If it's not handy, I'll send it right now. I would have it ready to go when I called for the reference.
And for the listeners here that are watching and listening, what would you say the best thing to have on that quarterly?
Oh my gosh. Of course, it differs based on the product, right? You're going to have KPIs, right? And those have to be agreed upon up front, right? That's part of the whole sales process and setting your teams up for success to say, what are the KPIs you're trying to look at? And let's talk about what you think success would be, right? Is lowering this 2%, is raising it 4%. What is success in your mind?
Mm-hmm.
So that in your head when this person's going to be a reference.
Sure.
And you say, okay, share where you're at now, and then let's talk about what success looks like. You sit there and once they tell you what their margin is to success in their mind, you now know when that client's a reference. Definitively, because you can go back and say, remember, these were the numbers that you told me you would view us as a success when you got to these numbers.
So you look at the end of the quarter and you work backwards, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're basically working backwards, and you have yellow stoplight, right? Red, yellow, green. I mean, hey, they're improving here, but we're not quite to green yet. So not quite a perfect reference yet, right?
Yep.
And let's just say there's 8 KPIs, and 7 out of the 8 we're green. That guy's ready to be a reference on 78. Well, what's wrong with number 8? What's going on with that? What can we do to help them get that number 8 to green too? Right. So that I can then go back and say, hey, you're green top to bottom now. Would you be willing to take a phone call or two for us at this point?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. He or she would be. So it's all about setting setting your prospects up for success, setting your internal teams up for success, set up your implementation team for success, set up that account management team for success. Customer support is who they call when something breaks.
It's exactly
That's
right.
not good enough. That is not good enough. You have to have proactive account management if you are trying to build a company in healthcare. Have to. You
It's
have
so
to build
funny
from
with being in digital healthcare for as long as you have, and I've been very fortunate to learn from you in digital healthcare, especially with all the years I was in surgical from a diagnostic and implant situation, stuff like that. And then I transferred to digital healthcare. You know, post sale customer service, in my view, is at an epidemic disaster. I don't care if it's with a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded conglomerate that starts with an M, or if it's a pseudo mid-stage growth startup who's on their Series A or B financing, right? I find that live chats, because the level that you paid for, you don't get a live person on the phone. I think that is an absolute epidemic disaster, because
Mm.
it makes you never want to do business with them because you can't get a human being on the phone to fix what you need fixed. What's your thoughts on that from a standpoint of somebody who's been doing digital healthcare way longer than I have? And that is your wheelhouse, is digital healthcare. What's your thoughts on that post-sale customer service that I just talked about?
If you want to grow your company, you have to have a single point of contact for those, especially the early adopters. For the early adopters, you absolutely have to have a single point of contact. And I will be the first to say, at some point, you get to a point where it's just not scalable, right? And you have to change that. And I understand that. But early on, you have to have a single point of contact that they can call, and they can get them on the phone, and they could say, "Hey, we're having a problem with this, this, and this." Okay. And that's going to be a proactive account manager,
Yeah.
generally speaking, right?
Mhm.
That's with them and is going to handhold them and baby steps and all that good stuff to get them through it. I mean, I think what people really fail to understand in healthcare is that, generally speaking, when we go in to implement systems in the healthcare arena, you're dealing with a mid-level manager that's wearing 27 hats and has an insanely busy life and job,
Yep.
insanely. And here you are walking in going, "Hey, we're the greatest thing since popcorn, and we're going to make all your people's life easier. Not yours, but your people's. So let's get right on that. You don't have anything else to do, right?"
It's true.
And they do. And so you literally, you have to help them. You have to help them be successful, and you have to be there for them in order to grow your company. So it has to be proactive. It cannot be a reactive thing. If you're proactive, you're generally out ahead of all their problems, which is where you want to be in terms of trying to grow your company and get it to where you start to, as we say, commercialize,
Yeah.
and really start selling at scale and start really pushing. And that's a different thing. But from zero to that level, it has to be proactive and has to be handheld and held like baby birds. Got to do it.
And I think what you just said is the main raw lesson revealed in this podcast. We've got to hold customers like baby birds, because if we don't grow. And people will leave a company and go to another company, even if the product is not as good, just because they get really supported based upon action, not just words.
Don't sell features. Don't sell product. Sell yourself and your services, and the fact that you're going to be there to help them be successful. That's what people need in today's day and age.
Yeah.
They need help. There's too much to do. They're being pulled in 17,000 directions. Be there as a resource for them. Help them get this done. You will only grow your company and be successful. This is going to make some people cringe, but I believe it to my core. And that is, a really good salesperson that isn't selling widgets, right?
Right.
That is in a technical sale, or a multi-layered sale, enterprise selling type scenario, where you have real competitors and it's real challenge. If you're trying to do that and you're in it for the long haul, right? You're not just trying to sell down and dirty and be there for 2 years and get kicked out, right? You're in it to grow the company. You're a believer. You want to be part of it. Then you're going to spend more time talking to those that you have sold than trying to cold call.
Yeah.
Cold calling's dead, is dead. I mean, it's all digital now. We Google for everything. I mean, I just said I do homework for stuff that I buy. So does everyone else.
Yeah.
So do healthcare executives. They're going to Google. They're going to look. When they're looking for something, fine. Now, it's a little different when you're trying to create a market. That's more difficult, right? That's a real challenge.
Yeah, you have to cold call there.
Yeah, you have to start saying, "Hey, is this something that would interest you all? Would you take a look at it?" But if it's something that's already out there, you have to have a marketing team that understands building a digital footprint and building a digital brand and really banging the door that way, right? There's a little out of the box ideas you can do here and there, but you're better served as a sales representative, spending time building relationships with those you've already sold, helping them because they will sell 3 times more than any marketing campaign.
It's always cheaper to have an existing customer buy your next line extension based products and services than trying to acquire new ones. We have to acquire new ones, and every company does, and they will. And there's some people that are better at cold calling than others. But at the end of the day, you got to have both. But it's definitely cheaper per customer acquisition cost for existing
It absolutely
customers.
is. You know, people always say, "Well, what's the number one thing you can do marketing wise in a startup?" And I said, "Have one of your clients up on stage at a trade show."
That's exactly right.
It's number one.
Yep.
Number one, them up there doing a presentation about what it is that you do and how you've affected them.
Yep.
Is number one. There's almost no point in going to trade shows as a newbie who no one knows without that.
Right.
If you can submit to have one of your existing, one of those alphas or one of those betas up there on stage doing a presentation about a topic that's related to what it is that you do, that's money well spent. You're going to get you're going to get some deals from that, some opportunities from that.
Yeah.
But to just go and show up and try to wrangle people into your booth and, they're walking by looking like, yeah, there's, hey, look, they got AI on their sign. They just like the other 37 booths, I mean,
It's so true. It's so true.
So there's a lot of pitfalls that these young companies go into, and I think if you really slow down, figure out what the steps are, figure out a realistic timeline for your investors so that they're not driving you nuts as you try to build this thing out and get to commercialization, I think you can be successful. But again, you got to have a real product.
Yeah, 100%. So with your expertise, real expertise in the digital healthcare world, if a C-level executive wants to get a hold of you, how did they get a hold of you to have a conversation about what you can do for them?
If they didn't know me, right, or they weren't recommended to talk to me from a reference,
sure,
just out of the blue, I would say the vast majority of them get there via your website. They get there via your website. Yes, of course, again, trade shows, if you have a speaker, you're going to get some traffic from that. And that's always a good thing. The smaller regional shows, you can play at those a little bit and have a little more traction because people stop and talk to you a little more. The big shows, forget it. There's no point in even going.
What about you? What about you yourself? If a company wants to talk to you, this has been a really good program. If a company wants to talk to you, is it best to get a hold of you on LinkedIn or what? Is it LinkedIn the best, or email or personal website?
LinkedIn is a super easy way to connect. My last name's easy to, there's not too many Banesses on the profile on LinkedIn. So not too hard to catch up with me for sure.
Well, Mike, you've been fantastic. I think in the short period of time we had, I think you've given some real major home runs for people to really listen once and then listen again and take notes and be able to incorporate some of the stuff into their business strategies and even tactical executions. And so I'm thankful that you took time to be on the podcast. And I look forward to staying in touch with you and see how we both can keep helping companies be more effective at business strategy. Thanks for being on the
Absolutely.
program.
Appreciate you having me on. Enjoyed it. Look forward to doing it again sometime.
Wow. Well, those are our raw lessons revealed to us on this episode from a sales management professional and digital healthcare business strategist who clearly knows what it takes for a digital healthcare startup company to commercialize their products with realistic effectiveness. Having what Michael said about the alpha partners is not a new concept, but maybe he explained it with a clearer understanding of what it takes to get some proof that the product or service not only works as it should, but that can deliver the realistic results and value for the prospective targeted customer. It seems no matter who we talk with in the med tech and health tech industry, executive leaders want quote unquote fast results. And we all understand why behind that desire, but it just isn't usually realistic. Unless the situation pertains to a trauma, a crisis, or emergency situations, speed is based upon the racing industry, not normally the healthcare industry. Although there are exceptions, as I just said. As I have been told so many times by so many ultra successful entrepreneurs, hastiness leads to too many gaps, which then results to ineffectiveness. Maybe that's why there are so many companies that are ineffective in their commercialization process. I guess time will tell. There are too many steps in the process, and whether it's a hospital or any other entity that treats patients, the rigidness of the processes is something vendor companies have to get on board with. Thank you so much for listening and taking notes. So together, we all can apply these very same principles and actions that Michael mentioned and use them in our own businesses. It's always an honor to have these successful business professionals on this program, sharing insights on what has made them and what keeps them on the top level of business. Please join us on our next podcast episode where we will keep having access to more and more people that have a heart for effectiveness in business and in life. And would you be willing just to take 7 seconds and please give a comment, and tap a 5-star rating to this podcast on the platform from where you are listening, and hit that subscribe button for more raw lessons revealed. See you next episode.